Hey friends, this is Karen from Blue Rooster Farm, and in today's video we're going to be in the kitchen and in the sewing room. We're going to start off in the kitchen and we're going to be making some cherry walnut bars, which is a vintage recipe that will be a great little treat for the holidays. And then we're going to be going into the sewing room where we're going to be sewing up the block to make this Christmas stocking by Tilda. And it's a free pattern, but we're just going to be making the block today, and then we're going to do the stocking another day. And so here's what the block is going to look like. Isn't that pretty? And then, as you know, if you've been following my channel, I have made the Christmas tree that she has on her Dear Santa pattern. And I have made the Santa, which I'm going to show you in a second. It's behind me. And then I designed a block of Mrs. Claus, and it looks like this. And I'm turning these 4 blocks into stockings. And so I finished my first stocking, and I'm getting ready to do a video on how to put these together. So you're going to see a video on doing the stockings as well, but not today. So here is the Santa stocking that I finished up. And I think it turned out just beautiful. It is a huge stocking, and it's going to be fun to fill with great stocking stuffers. We are a stocking stuffing family. So I hope you get a chance to make some of the cherry walnut bars and maybe even sew up a stocking of your own. So stick around. Thanks for sticking around, and we are in the kitchen to start with. And I had just checked my intro video to make sure it recorded, and I realized that when I stood here and my stocking was back there, that it looked quite small. And so I thought, well, I need to show you what it looks like in proportion to me. So if I set it right next to me there, you can see how big this stocking is. And we do, like I said, we love to do stocking stuffers at our house. So let me put this aside and let's get started on our cherry walnut bars. All right, so this recipe that I'm making for you today came from a book that I love to use. And this is the Madison County Cookbook, and it was copyrighted in 1995. And at that time, a few of you that are my age or just a little younger probably remember the book, The Bridges of Madison County, and the movie. I believe it was Clint Eastwood and Meryl Streep who played in that movie, and that was really popular back then. Well, this cookbook then came out, and it is from a church. I believe it was a Catholic church. Let me look. It is compiled by the members of St. Joseph's Church in Winterset, Iowa. And so in this book, we have farm wives of Iowa who have shared their favorite recipes. And we all know that the Midwest cooking is really good. And these recipes have proven that. I love these recipes. A lot of them are recipes that I already knew, but some of them are new to me. This one is new to me in that I haven't made it before, but I have seen it many times, and it is a vintage recipe. And the recipe that's in this one, the lady is Shirley Privatsky, I'm thinking. I don't know if I'm saying that right, and I apologize. But she just did not have that many details. It didn't say whether to melt the butter or to cut it into the flour. It didn't say whether to chop the maraschino cherries or leave them whole. Just little things like that. And I wanted to make it so that it was going to work. So I researched it, I looked it up online, and I found lots of different recipes for it, really similar, just a little bit different amounts in the ingredients or a smaller version. And I'm going to make it according to the different, and there are all different ways of making it. Some of them cut the flour, the butter into the flour, some of them melt the butter. So I'm going to make it in a version that I think would work out well. But I am following her recipe just about. I am increasing the amount of nuts because we like the nuts. And because this is going to be in a big jelly roll pan, I'm not worried about using a little more of the nuts, the cherries, and the coconut, because that will just give it more of those things in our cookie bars. So let's get started on this one. What we're going to do first is make the crust or the bar cookie that goes underneath it, and it's just a really simple recipe. A lot of these bar cookies are made with the same ingredients. So we just need to take 2 cups of flour and 1 cup of powdered sugar. And in some recipes they use regular sugar and they use half a cup, which would probably be equitable because powdered sugar is all fluffed up. So half a cup of white sugar would probably be the same sweetness. Then we're also going to take a cup of butter, which is 2 sticks. And this is where some people did different things. Some people cut the cold butter into the flour like you would do a pastry. Some people just melted the butter. Some people just softened the butter and mixed it in. I'm melting it. We're gonna see how that works. I make a lot of bar cookies with the flour and kind of a shortbread crust. And so a lot of them just have it melted. So we're just gonna do that. We'll make it simple. And if it doesn't turn out, I'll let you know and you can do it the other way. All right, and then we're just gonna take that and we are going to mix that up. And you can use a fork. This is just a Danish dough hook and it's great for thicker doughs. And it just whisks them up nicely. I can put a link in the description box if you want to see about these things. And they're just they're a firm wire on a wooden handle. And I find that these come in handy for things like cornbread, doughs that are heavier, like some breads that have not a yeast bread, but some breads that have more of a soft dough that's not real firm. This works really good. Even biscuits and things like that too, scones. And so I just get that so that it's mixed. Now, if you ever make the the layered pudding with cream cheese and there's a pecan shortbread crust, you know, you could even add some nuts to this and that makes it really yummy. But the nuts are going to be in the filling, so we won't bother with that. But this is just a really nice basic shortbread dough. We will put it in, and as you can see, it's just kind of crumbly. And so we're gonna have to pat that out. And I have a jelly roll pan, and mine is an insulated jelly roll pan. I love to cook with the insulated pans because they make it more even without browning around the edges, but you do have to cook longer. And since this pan is quite big, we have to kind of spread these crumbles out first and get them evened out, and then we'll start patting it down. Now I have taken this pan and I have oiled it, and then I put wax paper. You can use parchment paper or wax paper, and you don't even have to do that. I just want to be able to pull these out because I'm going to be making them and freezing them for Christmas, and for cookie plates and platters that we share. And so I am putting it with a layer of wax paper, and then I sprayed the top again with oil. That way they'll pop out of the pan nice and easy, and I can cut them into pretty squares. So let's just start pressing this down. So you can see I've kind of sprinkled it around. Now I just need to press it. And you can also take the bottom of a cup or the bottom of a bowl and go around and press. That would work just fine. But we'll see how this goes first. And it's a nice soft dough, so it does press down easy. I know some people have arthritis in their fingers and that kind of hurts to push down like that, so you may want to use something that you can hold in the palm of your hand. And then once you have it evenly spread out and pressed down, just kind of close up all those seams. And a lot of that will melt into each other, but you don't want any big cracks because that will make your dough or your crust crack when you cut it. And once I have this patted down, I will show you how I've got it. Now this is my very first cookie for the holiday season. I am behind. Thanksgiving was late this year, and I think that is the reason. And I just think everybody that I know feels really behind this year. And that's okay. We're just going to enjoy the season, enjoy the process, and get as much as we can done, but making sure that we don't overdo it because that ruins the holiday. So we will get as much as we can get done and enjoy our family and friends during this great time. I just got my tree decorated last weekend, which was about 5 days ago. We had the decorations up all over the house and everything was done, but I had not gotten the Christmas tree ornaments on yet. And so that finally got done. And so now I finally feel like the house is decorated. We've got lights outside and everything looks so nice. I just need to take an evening to sit down and enjoy it. Okay, so here's what my crust looks like. Just like that. I'm going to put it in a 350-degree oven, and I'm going to bake for about 12 minutes. This pan will take a little bit longer since it's insulated, but it should be just a little bit golden and maybe even around the edges if you're using a regular jelly roll pan. So I'm going to do that, and I'll bring it back when it comes out of the oven. Okay, the crust has been cooking for just a few minutes, and I thought I'm going to go ahead and mix up the ingredients that we are going to be pouring into it. That way, we'll just take it out of the oven. It'll still be hot. We'll throw this stuff in it, stick it back in the oven, and it'll be done quicker. So what we're going to do is we're going to take 4 eggs, and we are going to whip them nice and frothy, or mixed well. So we'll get those. Whoops. And just want to beat them nice and get them really nice and creamy. And you can certainly use a mixing bowl or a mixer for this, but I don't feel like you need to. And they're kind of airy, kind of creamy color, and they're nice and smooth and runny. Then to this, we are going to be adding 1/4 cup of flour, and I'll need to get that. And you know, I always think I have everything out, and I didn't. So 1/4 cup of flour, and I'm just going to mix that in gradually so I don't have lumps. This can also be mixed with your sugar and then poured in here. The sugar will keep it from lumping up. And it looks like I've got a cup of flour, but I've just had it full 1/4 of the way up. And then you're going to get kind of a pancakey batter, about the consistency of pancake batter. And then we're going to add, now this recipe called for 2 cups of brown sugar. I've decided to do a cup of brown sugar and a cup of white sugar. I just thought that would taste a little better. I don't want the molasses flavor of the brown sugar to overtake the maraschino cherries. So we're going to give that a good stir. Then we're going to be adding our nuts. And again, I am using 1 cup of chopped walnuts. And that means I chop them and measure a cup. In this recipe, it called for half a cup, but I've read other comments about this recipe in other locations, and a lot of people said there wasn't enough nuts or not enough cherries or not enough coconut. You know, it's up to your taste. So I'm just increasing it because I do like it, and this is a big pan. We're going to add a cup of coconut, and I'm selecting unsweetened coconut, but you can certainly use whatever kind of coconut you have. I think the unsweetened will be probably a little better because there's quite a bit of sugar in here, but it's all up to you. If all you have is sweetened, by all means use it. And that's a cup, and I may end up adding more. We'll see. Now the next thing they have us add are the maraschino cherries. And what I'm doing is I'm taking a 10-ounce jar of maraschino cherries, and I have put them in a strainer over a dish just like this because I want to take the juices out, but I want to keep the juice too because I can use that for punches and things like that. And I'm going to use the whole jar, and I don't know how much this is going to be because the 10 ounces included the liquid. But we'll measure and I'll let you know. And I'm just going to rough chop these. I want them to still look like there's cherries. I want the bright red color, but I don't want them too big. And as long as they're at least half, I'm fine. Most of them are probably more than that. But I just don't want any whole. And let's see how many we have here. It's not packed down, but it's just about a cup. So I would say a cup of chopped cherries would be really good. So we're going to add those, and don't worry about them needing to be completely drained because we are going to add some of this cherry liquid to our batter here. And so I just drained it so that I could chop them without making a big mess. So throw those in there. And then I think I'm going to need a spoon now because it's getting pretty chunky in here. And let me make a little space for myself. There we go. That out of the whisk. Those nuts want to stay in there. There we go. There we go. And I'll just use a spatula. And I'm just folding all of that in. That looks good. Now this recipe does not call for this, but I'm going to add a little bit of almond, and that's really kind of what's in the maraschino cherries to give it the flavor, but I just want to increase that flavor just a little bit. And I'm also going to add just a little bit of salt, a pinch of salt. So let me grab that and I'll be right back. Okay, while I was grabbing this, I just checked on my crust. And I had put it in at 15 minutes just because I had the insulated pan. I've added 3 more minutes with that insulated pan, but it's starting to puff and it's looking really good. So it should be done by the time I get this done. So I'm gonna add a pinch of salt, and a little tiny bit of almond extract, about a little lid full. So maybe a half a teaspoon. You can do it to taste, and you don't have to add this. You could add some vanilla if you wanted to. And let's stir that. That looks really good. I think I am going to add just a little bit more coconut, not much. About 1/4 of a cup. Because I like that coconut. Now it has us add 2 teaspoons of cherry juice. So we're gonna do that. One, 2. Now that egg mixture is what's going to get this to set up. It's almost like a pecan pie without the butter. And so it's what's going to set and make these really nice filled bar cookies. So there is what it looks like, and I've got about a minute left. So I'll bring you back when I have the crust out, and I'll show you how we pour it in. Okay, mine cooked for about 19 minutes. My oven runs a little lower, and I have an insulated pan, but you don't want to get it too overcooked or over brown, because remember, it is going to be cooking some more, but you want to get it set up nicely and just a little tiny bit of brown around the edges. Not much, not much. And so we're just going to take this delicious looking filling, and we are going to pour it all over this shortbread crust. This is going to be pretty. Now, I've seen other recipes that add a little bit of a cherry glaze to the top of this, just to add a little pink color to it. And I think I'm going to do that just to make it look more Christmassy, but it looks really pretty right now. It will brown some while it's cooking, so that will take away some of the pretty colors, but we'll put a little bit of glaze on it, just drizzle, and that I think will be really good. So I'm just getting this nice and even all over the bar cookie so it cooks evenly. Looks good. And back in the oven it goes, and it says 20 to 25 minutes, but that is according to your oven. And if your oven is a little cooler or it doesn't cook as hot, it will need to stay in longer. I'll tell you how long mine takes in this insulated pan. So while that is in the oven, I'm gonna go ahead and mix up a little glaze. And all I'm doing is taking some powdered sugar, and let's just start with a cup of it. And I am just going to take, I will try to measure it for you. I usually just pour it until it's the right consistency, but I'll try to give you an idea. So there's a tablespoon of the juice. Let's do 2 tablespoons. 2 tablespoons, let's see what that does. We're just gonna mix that together. And this is just a basic powdered sugar glaze or drizzle. Let's do another one. There's 3 tablespoons. And I think I'm going to add just a little bit more almond flavoring too. So just about 1/4 of a teaspoon. 1/4 to 1/2. And right now, this is getting to be more of a thick icing. So we're gonna go 1 more tablespoon there. And I think that's gonna do it. But it's gonna make a really pretty color. So that did it. And that's the consistency we want. Just enough looseness to drizzle it. Okay, so I'm gonna set this aside and we're gonna wait for that to come out. I'll be right back. All right, these have been out of the oven for about 5 minutes. They are nice and a golden brown, and they puffed up nicely. And now after sitting for about 5 minutes, it's firm. There's no gooiness or jiggle to it. So be sure it's cooked thoroughly. I ended up cooking mine 30 minutes because it was 20 to 25 minutes recommended. And then I cooked it 5 more minutes after I did 25, and it was 30 minutes altogether in my oven with an insulated pan. And so now we are ready to drizzle a little bit on it. And as you can see, the fruit and the coconut, they settled lower. And so right now we have more of what looks like a bar cookie. I can see a few cherries poking up. I don't see the coconut or the nuts, which I thought maybe we'd see. If you wanted to see that, you could sprinkle that on top, and that way you could see those things. Maybe next time I make this, if I make it again, we'll see how good it is. I will sprinkle some cherries, nuts, and coconut on top, and just not have that covered with that egg and sugar mixture, and just see if it leaves more of a crunchier looking top that kind of shows what's in it. But we are going to drizzle it now with a little bit of this pink cherry icing to get it looking like the holidays. Now, I may not use all of this, we'll just see. So I'm just getting it so that it's stirred up, because sometimes after sitting it starts firming up, and if it does, just add a little more liquid and you'll be good. So let me just, and again, it's still hot because this glaze will set once it's cooled. And just by putting it on hot helps it be nice and crisp. And I'm just kind of doing small drizzles, and you can do it however you like. I know this is already a pretty sweet bar cookie, so I don't want to overpower the sweetness, but I think this will add a nice little cherry flavor and an almond flavor, and also make it look really pretty. And you could even take some of your decorative sugars or decorative candy pieces and sprinkle it on, and they'll stick to the icing, and that would make it pretty too. So I'm just going to go one direction, then the other, and now diagonally. Again, just whatever you want to do. This icing would be really good on a cinnamon roll. I just thought about that. Cherry icing on a cinnamon roll, yum. And I know there are people out there that don't like maraschino cherries, and this would not be the bar cookie for you, but I really do. I've always loved maraschino cherries. And you know, I remember when I was younger, and anytime there was a cookie recipe or something in my childhood when I was cooking that had maraschino cherries, I wanted to make it. And I was usually disappointed with it because the maraschino cherries were wet, you know, of course, and it just didn't turn out the way I thought. It kind of ended up being more cakey. And so I'm interested to see how this is going to turn out. I know that when you use the maraschino cherries in a cookie recipe, you really have to have them nice and dry, and a lot of times also rinsed to get the extra food coloring and stuff that's loose on there off. If you have a good maraschino cherry recipe, let me know. I'd love to hear it. I just about got it. You know, I always started off trying to be neat, and then it's just like, oh, that doesn't have enough there. Let's just do a little more there. And once you have these cut into bars, it does not matter. No one sees what you were originally planning. Just make sure always that outside edge gets a little. Sometimes those edge pieces are a little drier or not the favorite parts that people like. So here is what it looks like. I am going to let it set here and cool, and I'm going to get some stuff done around the house, and then I'll bring you back and we'll do a taste test. So it's now getting close to evening. I have been in the kitchen most of the day. I've been in the sewing room just a little bit, so I had a little bit of time in there, but I've been trying to get the pantry filled with all the things that I needed to do my Christmas baking with. And so here is what our bars turned out to look like. They are cooled. I did add just a little bit of the red decorator sugar to it just to give it a little glisten, and I think that kind of made it pretty too. But while I was in the kitchen, and some of the different basic supplies that I was making was my corn syrup, which is actually, I guess, sugar syrup since there's no corn in it. But this is great to cook with. This is just as easy to use as the store-bought corn syrup, but it's a lot cheaper. Really easy to make. I have a recipe from last year, and I'll put a link for it right here if you want to know how to make your own. And I really think it's made better candy, better divinity, better marshmallows than the store purchase kind because it's very thick. Mine is very thick. And the recipes that I use it in do not take as long to cook to the candy stage that I need. So I really like it. The other thing I was stocking up on was my peanut butter. So I've made some peanut butter, and again, you can make your own. I have a video for that because I plan on making peanut butter balls, the Buckeyes, chocolate coated with Rice Krispies and peanut butter, and I have a video for that from last year. We make those every year. Most requested candy cookie recipe that I make, and we keep them in the freezer, and so they last a long time, and they're always gone, and we usually make double batches. The other thing that I was making was marshmallows, and we just love homemade marshmallows. Now these are chocolate, and I've just laid them out here, and they'll cool overnight and just kind of set up overnight. They're really in good shape already, but we just let them dry out a little bit overnight. These are the regular white marshmallows, and I made these in a 13 by 9, and they're gonna be nice and thick, so I'll do cubes with these, and then I'm gonna do cutouts with the flatter ones, and they still are pretty thick. So I love dipping those in chocolate, and again, they freeze beautifully, and everybody loves those. Homemade chocolate dipped marshmallows, you can't beat it. And the final thing that I was making today was getting my brown sugar made so that I had plenty to bake with, and so I've got plenty of brown sugar made now too. So all of these recipes are things that I made last year, so if you want to know how to make any of those, I will put the links in the description box below so that you know how to make those too. But they are a great lifesaver if you're ever out of those items, and they are made with things that you normally just have in the house in your pantry. So let's get busy tasting these cherry walnut bars. I can't wait. I'm going to bring you down so you can see what they look like. Okay, so I started to cut these before I turned the camera on, and then I realized, oh, I don't have the camera on, and then I realized, oh, I've got wax paper under these. I want to take them out of this pan before I cut them. So I'm just going to loosen these up around the edges, and I hope this comes out. We will see. And I hope this is recording. Sometimes things start acting funny on my phone, and my battery is just about dead, so that is the problem. So let's see here. And I think actually what I'm going to do, I think it will work this way. Let's cross our fingers. Okay, it worked that way. Now, let's take off the wax paper. Okay, then we're going to put the cutting board on top. We're going to flip it. And there we go. Ah, perfect. So here is what we were working on a while ago. Let me just cut all the way through here. There we go. And I'm not going to cut these very big, and I'll just cut a few right now. I will probably, let's see, probably about 1.5 inches squares, something like that. Whoops. My knife could be a little sturdier. And I'm going to sample one of these in the middle. That way we will know what the edges look like on all sides. So let's just grab this one. And it is kind of a ooey gooey, stretchy inside there, kind of candy-ish. So let me put our plate. Look at that. Doesn't that look good? The shortbread crust is really solid. It's not going to fall apart. It's not crumbling. There was enough butter in there to keep it all together. And then of course, once we added the topping, that also helped to make that a sturdy shortbread crust. And it looks so good. Let's give it a try. Okay, number one, you have to use real butter. That shortbread crust on there is delicious. I taste the coconut, I taste the cherries, I taste the walnuts, and it's almost like eating, as far as texture-wise, a pecan pie. It's got that same texture. If you added more pecan or more walnuts, you would have what tastes like a pecan pie with coconut and cherries. That is really good. Really, really good. And you don't need a very big piece. It's very rich. It's like a candy. So it will go great with coffee, with tea, a big glass of milk, and it will be something that your family, if they like all those ingredients, will be asking for from here on. And this is going definitely on my Christmas cookie list from now on, because whenever I make cookies for the holidays, I like to do a variety. I like to do different flavors. I like to have a mint, chocolate, vanilla, peanut butter, and now I have cherry. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please consider subscribing, and I hope you're sticking around to see how we make that panel to put in our Tilda stocking. And it is a lot of fun, and I hope you get a chance to make that too. So here's our next video. Well, here we are getting ready to sew up our Merry Little Christmas Winter Bird Christmas stockings. And this is a free downloadable pattern on Tilda's World, and I will put a link in the description box below to this pattern, and you can download it and you can pull that up and you can follow along with me. What I am doing today is I am just going to be making the block. I'm not going to be putting it into the stocking yet. I will be doing a video when I turn Santa and Mrs. Claus, those blocks that I had made earlier, into a stocking. So I'm going to get all of my blocks made before I start making the stockings. So if you want to see how these can be turned into stockings, you can come back and watch those videos when they're released, or you can just follow the directions in Tilda. But today we're just going to piece our block, and it's a real simple one. I did give you a PDF, and it is this one right here. And it just tells you what fabrics you're going to need for what fabric. Remember, in Tilda, when she gives you her free patterns, they are wonderful patterns, great pictures, great instructions. But on the cutting directions, all the cuts are mixed up, and you've got to figure out what fabric it is and cut it the size of those A, B, C, D, whatever it is, cuts. So what I've done is I've just helped you out, and I've shown you what letter and how many you need for the background fabric, what letter and how many you need for the stem, the bird, the leaf, and then the berries. So that way you don't have to go through and figure out which fabrics you need to cut. It's all right here. Just refer to the directions for the sizes when you cut them. And that is something that I find real helpful, so I hope you find it helpful too. So, and you can even cut these squares out and lay them on top of the background cuts and the stem cuts and the leaf cuts and the bird cuts. I didn't do that. There's only 4 different cuts, so I'm good. Then the other thing is we're going to follow along on this pattern. So I am using as a background fabric my Essex linen flax, and I'm not using the yarn dyed. I'm just using the plain flax. So it will coordinate with my Mrs. Claus and Mr. Claus blocks. So that way they'll all go together. But I will be using Merry Little Christmas fabric for everything else, and I've got all of it cut. I chose to do a variety of leaf fabrics, and my bird fabric, I would have liked to have used my big floral red for the bird, but you would lose so much of it as far as it kind of gets, the shape of the bird kind of will get lost because the flowers are so big. So I went with the small floral because whenever you're doing a pieced block that isn't very large, using a smaller print will kind of keep the shape clearer, and I think this will work great. And then we'll be appliquing some berries on. So really the only thing we need to do is just start with each of these sections, and we'll see how she does it. I haven't even checked to see how she does it yet. So I've got all my fabric cut out, and it looks like she has 3 sections that she puts together, and then she pieces those 3 together. So it looks like it says the stages of making the stocking patchwork is shown in figure E. Leaf unit 1, bird unit, and leaf unit 2. So this is leaf unit 1, bird unit, leaf unit 2. And we will describe each of these sections in turn. So let's flip right here. And she also goes through and shows you how she'll piece those, put them together, add a top piece, a bottom piece, and some piece right here for the toe. And again, we'll do this at another time. And so she's going to start off by making the leaves. And I think that one is where I would have started too. So basically, we're just going to take all of our leaf units, and we're just going to use that corner triangle method or the snowball or stitch and flip method that we do so often. And we're just going to put those together, and that should go together real quickly. So we have to go back over here and see which pieces she uses. So right here, it shows the cuts that we use. We're going to use D's for the background fabric, D's for our corner squares. And so this will be real simple. We will just put in all of the corners, and it doesn't matter which corners you use, just as long as they're opposite corners. We will just put these in all of the corners. We will put our diagonal lines from corner to corner. And then we will take it to the sewing machine, and we will sew right on that line or a thread's thickness toward the corner of that line. And so I'm going to go do that. Remember, you can use glue. Let me grab some of my glue here. You can use glue, and if you want in the corners, because those are going to come off, we're going to trim those off. This is a real helpful method. Just put a dot of Elmer's school glue in those corners, and you can use any kind of glue because you are going to be cutting those off, and then they're ready to go. So I'm going to go and do all 7 of my leaf blocks exactly like this. When I get them all sewn, I'll bring you back. And here are all of my pieces. I pressed them back, and I just want to say, if you are doing fussy cut squares, and I did 2 of them with this one fabric because I think these little animals are just adorable, be sure you decide which direction you want them to go in and which direction, like if I put this one, the corners on this one and this one, it's going to be one of these leaf stems over here too. I wanted the 2 that I had fussy cut on opposite sides, so I put the corners on opposite corners, just like that. But I think those are going to be cute, all fussy cut. Also, I didn't tell you in the beginning, but all of my fabric has been pre-starched. I starched before I cut, and that makes sewing these really simple. Now you can use a scissors to trim your 1/4 inches away from your seam line, or you can use a rotary cutter. It does not matter. I'm going to get these all trimmed up, and then we'll go to our next step. Okay, all of those are trimmed. Now let me just throw these away. So if you get tired of drawing those lines, you may want to invest in some diagonal seam tape. It's not expensive at all, just a little more than $6 or $7, I think. It is made by Cluck Cluck Sew, but they have all different brands and varieties out there. It helps you put this tape at the base of your sewing machine, and then you can just follow the lines on the tape to sew your diagonal seam, and it goes by so much faster. When I do my tutorials, a lot of times I will draw the lines for those people that don't have this, but if I were sewing myself, I just use my tape. And so the one that I did first was the one I had the lines on, and then after that I didn't draw any lines. So I will put a link to some of this diagonal seam tape in the description box below if you're interested in getting it. This just came in our Sew Sampler box for November. Okay, so I brought over this board here, and I think this will help for you to see these better. And we're going to look and see what we're going to be setting up next. So we've got the leaves all with their corners on them. And now we need to be doing the upper portion. And you know what? I think we're going to do the bottom section too at the same time. I think we're going to do this section and this section. It's basically the same thing. So just a few more leaves in this section. So what they have us do is lay out our leaves, and we also need to add, I believe that's B. Let's see. This first square is a B, and then we have C, C, and then all of these are C's. So this one's just a little smaller for some reason. Oh, it doesn't have the stem attached, that's why. Okay, so let me grab those. Okay, so I've got my B's and my C's, and now we're gonna lay this out. And this one is just a little wider because of the stem section. It doesn't have it at the top. So it looks like we need to have 2 leaves going on the right up and 1 leaf on the left going up. And I am going to add my fussy cut one at this time. Let's see if I want to add, I think I'll add this one here and this one here. And I'm kind of just looking to see if I'm getting a variety of fabrics. Maybe I'll do a light one. No, I think that's good because there's 4 blocks here and it's okay to have a light there. So that one looks good. Let's lay this one out first. And then we've got our B block here. And then we've got C and C. So these are going to be sewn together, except we do need our stem in there, don't we? So I do have a stem, and you can use your fabric from Merry Little Christmas. And I was going to use the brown floral, but then I thought, I think I'm going to use this Essex linen brown that I use for the boots and shoes on Mr. and Mrs. Claus. That way they have some kind of a common fabric color in there. And since this is the short one, this one is going to be going right there. So that's how this is going to look. So what I am going to do is I'm going to go ahead and let's see how she shows she's doing it. It looks like she's sewing these two together and these two together, and then putting this one with it. Then she's sewing these two together. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to go to my machine. I'm going to put right sides together. I'm going to sew a 1/4 inch from this edge. Same thing here. 1/4 inch from this edge. 1/4 inch from this edge. Then I'm going to open these up, and then I'm going to sew them to this piece. It'll again be right sides together, and they should match the height of that stem. If they don't, you need to check your cuts or your seam allowance, making sure you're at 1/4 inch. So I'm going to get this done and I'll bring you right back. Now, when you are doing this stem, I suggest you go ahead and press those seams out because there's not enough room in here to have both seams. And this is just a 1/4 inch that's showing. So be real particular with that. And also, if you noticed, I was laying it all out before I picked it up and put it together again. It's very easy to get these turned around. So now that those two are on, we'll just flip this one. And again, I've not been pinning, but if you need to pin or if your pieces aren't lining up perfectly, be sure you put pins in. So if mine weren't exactly the same size, I would go ahead and even if they're not in your beginning quilter, it's really suggested that you use your pins. That way it won't slip from your feed dogs. Actually will be pulling the fabric at different rates. The bottom feed dogs will pull that fabric, and if you're not careful, this top piece will hang over. So I suggest putting pins on the ends. Now mine match up, they're both the same size, but if I had one that was gapping a little bit, that one that was longer, I'd put toward my feed dogs, and that way it would take in that extra. So I'm going to go ahead, and since I do have, this seam is not matching any seam, it's going right in the middle of that stem, this middle seam. I don't have to worry about matching seams, but I can put a pin there to keep it right in the middle, and I think I'll do that. And then I'll just sew a 1/4 inch away from this top edge. And there we have that piece all sewn together. Now I did go ahead and press toward the top two pieces. There's a fewer seams and it seems to lay flatter there. So that's what I did. You can choose how you lay yours. While I've got all of these leaves and these pieces, let's go ahead and build the bottom unit. And that is on a different page here. So we'll just go over here. There's no sense in doing it 2 different times. So it looks like on this one, we're going to have 4 that are background pieces, and they're all the letter C's. And then we're going to have our, let's see, I think I'll put that guy there. 2 on each side. Now remember, you can flip these so they can go either way. And let's see what colors I want. I think the dark will look good there. And I kind of think maybe a light would look good here. So we'll turn it this way. A light here, that one, a dark, and then a light. Just to kind of mix it up a little bit. So let me move that up for you. So this is what I've done for those. Again, we're going to need to have a stem piece, and this time the stem piece is going to go all through all of the blocks. So what we're going to do is we are going to be sewing all 4 of these blocks together and all 4 of these blocks together, and then attaching them to the stem. So I'm just going to start off by going here and flipping these and sewing this, flipping this one, sewing this, and really make sure you've got your leaves going in the right direction before you do this. Do the same down here with these 2. And I will sew on those top seams, and I'll be right back. And I've got those sewn. I haven't pressed yet because I can press all at the same time. Now if I can remember how I had these, we'll see. I think I had, it was like this one, and that one. Whoops, not that one. This one, and this one, and this one. Okay, so you might mark them if you need them to be in the right position. If they're mixed up, it's okay, but I think this is the way I had it. I just want to make sure my polar bear is going the right direction, and then all of the leaves are going up like that. Now I'm going to take these 2 and I'm going to sew them 1/4 inch away from the edge, and the same with these 2. Okay, and I did press them, and I pressed them all toward the background fabric since there's no seams on those, so they lie nice and flat. Now we need to add our stem piece, and we'll lay this right here and see how we did. We look pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and put pins on it though, just so that it doesn't slide and make it short or the leaves short. Now I do notice right here, and I don't know if you can see this, I have a little bit of a hang off on my triangle there, and I'm going to trim that so it's square with this edge. And so I am just laying my ruler. Let's see if you can see that here. I'm laying my ruler. Got a little glare. Let's go over here. There we go. I'm laying my ruler so there's a straight line down here so I know we're getting it square. And then my other line is right on the green fabric right here, so I know I'm having a 90-degree angle down there. I want to keep that square. So let me put it up a little higher. My triangle probably was just sewn a little high on that one. And it's okay, these are leaves. It doesn't matter on these how wide those leaves are. Okay, so now we've got that one. Now let's take and make sure all of our leaves are going up, yep. And we're going to put this, again, if there's a right and wrong side, put them right sides together. And we're going to put pins on each end. And this one's laying really nicely. And there's not going to be any seams meeting on any of these leaves. So it's a very friendly and forgiving block. And I'm going to go ahead and sew a 1/4 inch away here, and then I'll do the same thing over here, just like we did up here on this one. And there we have this stem done as well. So let's start up here, and we're going to put the side blocks on this one. And so let's look and see what we have. It looks like we have A and F on each side, and down here we're going to have S, and that looks like a U. So I'll get those. So let's start with this one, and we said A right here and F right here, and this is very simple, straightforward. Just sew these on just like this, a 1/4 inch away. Now let's check and see how we're doing. As we get more and more stitches in our are more and more piecing in our pieces that we're sewing together, we have more of a chance of getting our blocks off a little bit. And so let me see. So right now I can stretch that and it fits. But the bottom fabric here, this fabric down here, is just a little tiny bit larger, just a little tiny bit larger. And that's because I'm using a scant quarter foot. I can stretch it just a little bit and it will go together. But I'm going to put this end down and it will gradually take in just that tiny bit of extra fabric. I'll go ahead and put a pin right in the middle just to keep it together. Then as I'm here, I might as well just go ahead and pin this one on. Again, right sides together, same thing. We can match these two up just like that. That looks good. This one actually seems to be fine. Matched up perfect. And I'll tell you what, before I go back, I'm just going to go ahead and do this one too. This one is S, and this one is U. So let's just do the same thing there. And I will take both of these sections and I will sew all 4 seams. So there we have it. We have both top and bottom sections done, and I ended up pressing toward the background fabric, and those 2 are done. So that was nice and easy. So let's set those aside and let's get the bird parts. Okay, so I was looking at the directions down here, and she's pretty vague. You use the pictures pretty much to put it together. So between the pictures here and our cuts here, we can determine what we need to do. So the first thing we're making is this little piece right here. It's that top wing that's sticking out on its back, and that's a half square triangle, and she's having us do 2 at a time. We're only going to need 1 though. So let's see what 2 fabrics we need for that. We need L and L, and one is the background fabric and one is the bird fabric. These 2 fabrics should be the same size because they are the same cut. And what we're going to do is we are going to put right sides together, and we are going to draw a diagonal line. Again, if you have the seam tape on your sewing machine, you can skip this process. You will use the lines on that seam tape to help you. But we'll go ahead and do it here. I'm going to draw a line right down the middle. Now on this square, we're not going to be sewing on that line. We're going to be sewing a 1/4 inch away over here and a 1/4 inch away over here. So you can use your presser foot or however you determine a 1/4 inch from your middle line here. Or if you wanted to, you could just lay this out and you could draw a 1/4 inch line and sew on that line. Just match up that line that we originally drew with the 1/4 inch line and just draw lines on each side of it, okay? So I'd have another line over here, and then you'd sew directly on those lines. So I'm gonna go do this a 1/4 inch away on both sides, and I'll bring you right back. Okay, so we have it sewn on both sides. Now we can just take our rotary cutter or our scissors and cut directly on that line. And when we open these up, we have 2 half square triangles that should be the same size. We only need 1. So you have a bonus if you mess something up. So I don't know which one. I think that one's kind of pretty with the blue. I think I'm going to keep that one. So we can press this and we can measure it. I believe she said, let me look here. It says the units should be 2 inches unfinished. So let's measure. She did have us cut these exact. It was a 3/8 inch, to the 3/8 of an inch. So if you wanted to make these bigger and just cut them a little bigger, both squares a little bigger, and then just trim them down, you can. So let me see if I've got 2 inches here. And it would help if I had the right side of my ruler. There we go. It looks like I am right on 2 inches, so we're good. If you were a little bit off, a little bit short, you'd still be fine. You would be okay. So all I have to do here is just trim my dog ears and I'll be good. And I'm looking to see, I don't think this one, let's go ahead and press this one toward the red fabric, because we are going to have another corner block right here that they're going to be meeting right here, and we'll press that one toward the background fabric. So I'm going to press this toward the bird fabric. Okay, so that's all pressed. Now let's take a look and see what we do next. Let's see, here it is. Now what she wants us to do is, it looks like step 2 is with the piece of fabric that's right next to the bird, its beak, and then a little square. So let's see what pieces those are. It looks like we need I, J, and H. And the J is the beak fabric, and the I and the H are the background fabric. Okay, so it actually is an I. There's an I for the beak and an I for the background fabric, and then the H. Now we still have an I background fabric left, so we'll keep that on our board. The writing on here is just really small. Okay, so here's what we have. And so what we're going to start off with is we're going to take this little beak piece of fabric, and I need to add this to our cutting section. I forgot about that. So hopefully I do that for you. And we're going to lay it right here, right sides together, and we are going to draw a line if you need a diagonal line, or you can use your seam tape. And we are going to sew right directly on that line. And this is a good one to use a little bit of Elmer's glue or some sort of glue in that upper corner, the corner that we are going to be cutting off. Just like that. Okay, so I'm going to sew right on that line, and I'll bring you right back. And there I have pressed it back, and it matches up with the back triangles, or the back corners. Now I just need to trim that off 1/4 inch away from that seam line. And remember, when you're working with these really small pieces, if you want to shorten up your seam length, that will be real helpful. So go ahead and do that on these small pieces. Then we're going to take this piece, and we're going to take the background eye and put it right on top. And we are going to sew 1/4 inch from the top right there. And if you need to, you can put a pin in it, but don't glue it, because this one doesn't have anything that we're going to be trimming off. And there we have that piece right there with the bird beak on it. Now, this is a really small piece, and when you're feeding it through your sewing machine, it's really easy for it to kind of go off. And what I like to use is a stiletto, and I just like to kind of keep an eye on this side, and then just kind of guide this one in and not let it get wonky on me, and just like that. You can also use just your seam ripper if you don't have a stiletto, but that is something, if you are working and having trouble with your little pieces getting wonky, use those stilettos. That keeps your fingers from getting sewed. Now, if you ever see me using a product or something on my videos, I usually have it linked in the description box. If there is something you see that I did not link, just leave something in the comment and ask. And if it's still available, I'll share a link with you so that you can find those products that I use. But I think I have a lot of my favorite products already linked in the description box below. I'll add as I need to. So now we have these 2 sections. So let's go back to our piecing of the bird. And we need to do this section and this section. So let's start with this section. And there is a tiny little background square right there. And we have another larger one here. So there's 3 pieces actually on that section. We need That is an I. We need another I, and that's that background piece that we had extra. We need a J from the bird fabric, and we need a K from the background fabric. Now there are several K's, so just take the one you need and put the others back. Whoops. And there's the last I. So let's just lay this out the way they have it. They have this piece here and this piece here, and it should be completely covering this side of this rectangle, okay? And again, we can put a little glue because this is going to be a diagonal seam again. So I'll put it right there. And over here, this little tiny one again, right up in that corner, we'll put a little glue and just make sure we have those edges matching. That way it'll try to keep from being wonky. And this one right here needs to be adjusted. Okay. And again, we'll draw our diagonal lines, or you can use your seam tape. This one needs to go this way. Whoops, that didn't show up too well. Sometimes they tend to dry up if I just have them setting. And then this one needs to go this way. And I'm going to go to my sewing machine and sew on those lines, or just a thread's distance toward the corner. And there we have it. We just need to go ahead and cut 1/4 inch away. And remember, this is the piece that I said, let's press it toward this background fabric, because this next piece that we have here that we're going to add is pressed toward the red. So it's pressed this way, and we've got this one pressing this way. Okay, so there's that piece. Now let's see what we need to do. All right, so now she has us sew those two pieces together, and then we'll make this one. So let's go ahead and just get these two sewn together. Since we have the seams going in opposite directions, these should nest, and they do, and that makes it just nice and flat right there, and they lock together. So if you need to put pins, go ahead and do so. And I'm just going to put one right down here. And then when I get to my machine, I'll just put my needle right there. So we'll get started. 1/4 inch from this edge. And if you met your seams and nested them, they should be a nice point right there. If not, don't worry about it. This is a bird. It doesn't have to be perfect. Also, I did split my seam allowance, and I pressed open. So there we have that top. Now it says to get the bottom part done. So let's see what those pieces are. Those are M and 2 Ks. So the M is the bird fabric, and the 2 Ks are the background. Okay, so these are the last 2 Ks here, and the M. Getting a little pile going over here. Let me clean up. Okay, so what we need to do here is just put these K pieces in the bottom corners, and that will round the bird's body. So again, if you want to use pins, you can, or you can use glue just in those bottom corners. And we will draw the lines, but if you have the seam tape, use your seam tape. We're going to go and sew right on those lines, or just a thread's thickness toward the corners, and I'll be right back. And we have that piece I've pressed back. Let me go ahead and trim those back corners off 1/4 inch from the seam line. And this block is just going together so quickly. So this is going to go right here. And so I'm going to lay this one on top of this one, right sides together. Again, let's use a couple of pins. Whoops, that's a huge one. I keep grabbing that big one. And I like these little glass head ones. So let's go ahead and put put those pins right there, match up those corners. If you have one piece of fabric that's hanging loose a little bit, that one will go toward the feed dogs. It looks like mine are okay. You can put another pin in the middle, but there's nothing to meet up here. I'll be right back. And there we have it all pieced together. I pressed toward this piece of fabric down here because there's no seams. So that looks good. Now I think we are going to go ahead and go right over here. This is what we have. And we are going to get these pieces here. Let's get this center piece and do it first. That one is O in the bird fabric and P in the background fabric. And that's these two pieces right here. What we're going to do is we are going to put them so that they're layered on top of each other. If you are using fabric that has a right side and a wrong side, we have right sides together, and we're going to be laying the rectangle red fabric or the bird fabric going long ways like that. That square should fit really nicely right there and cover up that whole end. And we are going to, whoops, wrong pin. Here it is. Draw a line and we'll sew on that line. Again, if you need to use a little glue or a pin, go ahead and do that. And there we have that piece. Just make sure it covers that back section, that back corner, and then trim a 1/4 inch away. And remember, if you end up having where your corner does not cover up that, if it's off by quite a bit, just rip those seams out and do it again. It's not very much to rip out and it'll go real quickly. So it's easier to have it and to sew with it if it's accurate when we're doing these smaller pieces. So then we need also background fabric, these two pieces here. And what did I say? N and Q. Okay, so this is Q, and it's a little bit wider than it is, or a little tall, wider than it is tall. So be sure you have it going the right direction. And this is the same way, so that one's too wide, so make sure you put it so that it's the same length. And this is real easy, just sew this one a 1/4 inch away and sew this one a 1/4 inch away, and I'll be right back. And I press both of them toward the background fabric. Okay, now what we can do is we can go ahead and put these three pieces together. Now I did press this toward, I'm going to change the pressing on this one. I'm going to be pressing this one toward the bird fabric, and that should help right here when we match up that seam, because we do have a matching seam right here. So let's do this one first. We are going to put these two together. I'm going to match the corners first. And then what we're going to do is we're going to look at where they're going to intersect. And it's right here, I believe, yes. One of the seams is straight up and down. The other one is at an angle. Now let's go to this side right here, or we can go from this side. And if we put a pin a 1/4 inch away from the edge, just right on that seam line, and you could either actually measure it or you can eyeball it. When you turn it over, it should match right there with that diagonal seam, and it does. So I'm going to put a pin right there, and that one is good. So I'm going to sew a 1/4 inch away right here. And there we have that piece, and as you see, they matched up just perfect. And if they don't match up on yours and it's off by quite a bit, just rip out your seam and try it again. It should fit together fine. Now, I did end up pressing this one toward the bird because when we place it with the leaf blocks, these are pressed toward the background, so they're being pressed this way. This one, if we want them to nest, we'll press this way. And so that's why I pressed it toward the bird. Now let's go ahead and put this one on, and let's see if we need to change any of our seams here. I do believe I'm going to change this one right here. I'm going to make this one go down. And that way, let's see if that's going to, they won't get too, actually, well, that one, I think we're going to have one seam, let's see where it matches, right here at the top of the head. So this right here, this little spot right here is going to match with the top of this beak. So this one's a diagonal seam, this one's a straight up and down seam. So we're going to match up the ends like we did last time. So match up the ends. Put pins in both corners. And if you have it pretty good there, it should line up. Okay, so again, I pressed that right there, that direction, just to keep from having too much bulk because this one's pressed this way. So I'm going to take a pin and we're going to see if we're accurate. I'm going to go 1/4 inch down from this straight seam. Looks like it's about there. And it does land right into that seam. So that's where we want it. So let me put a pin right there. And I'm going to take that and sew 1/4 inch away from that edge. And we have that one, and it matched up just perfect. Now I did press this one toward the bird too, because that seam is matching this one, and this one's pressed toward the background. So this one's going this way and that one's going that way. All right, we are just about done with this block. All we need to do now is add our side pieces, and let's see which letters those are. That would be G and R. So it looks like G is going to go in front of the bird, and R will be over on this side. And again, just a basic stitching seam, right sides together, pin to make sure that you have them matching on the edges, and then whichever side is loose, go toward your feed dogs. And there we have our bird, and I pressed toward the background fabric pieces that we just added. Now it's time to put these 3 sections together. So let's do that. We are almost done. Give us a little more room. This is going to be tall. Okay, so I'm going to put that one there. And actually, we're only going to be matching this seam. I checked again, and this seam right here does not match over here. So it's just this seam right here. And this seam right here. So that's the way it's going to match up. So let's put right sides together. Let's match up our corners. This is such a cute pattern. I think this would be just adorable. They have a quilt using this, and I think that would just be really pretty. And I think they even maybe have a couple put together to make a pillow. So that would also be pretty, but these stockings are just so cute. So this one right here, since we've pressed the right way, those 2 seams right there will just nest together perfectly, and we can put a pin to keep them together. And I'm going to go and sew 1/4 inch away from that edge. And that is together, and I pressed that seam open. There's so many different seams in here that it just laid better open. Now let's match up these 2 seams here. First we'll get the corners. right here, make sure they nest. Mine did a nice job nesting right there. You can feel it when they lock into place. And then I think this is just a little loose here. You can see it's a little loose. So this is going to go toward my feed dogs. And I will just put a pin to kind of get that fabric on both sides. And I'll sew our last seam. I'll be right back. And there we have our finished pieced panel. Now, we aren't completely finished. Now, you could finish it right here and it would be beautiful, but there are little red berries in this pattern, and they are on these blank squares right here. And these little berries are applique berries, and let me show you how you can make them. Now, according to her instructions, and I went ahead and used her instructions. Now, if you use Lori Holt's method of applique, that would probably work just as well. I am not as familiar with that. I usually do raw edge applique, so I just went ahead and did it this way because I have done it this way before on some other pieces. So I went ahead and did it this way because it did work out best for me. But if you applique a lot and you have your favorite way of appliquing, go ahead and do whichever way works best for you. And you certainly could raw edge this as well. If you felt more comfortable just cutting 1-inch circles and then appliquing around them, you could do that. But here is the method that she shares with us. And I've already been making some because you're going to need to make, I believe, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, you're going to need to do 7. So I went ahead and I made, looks like 5. So I am ready to do 2 more. I figured if I goofed up one when I'm showing you, I can do another one here. I've got all the supplies. I took a 1.5-inch circle of the fabric that I'm using for the berries, and I cut it out. Now you can, she may have that pattern in here. I didn't copy the whole pattern because she has every color on this pattern, and so I just copied one version of it because I don't need to have every color since I'm using my own fabric colors anyway. But there may be a template in this, but you need a 1.5-inch circle. So I just used, I think it was my little flatter bottle. Yeah, so if you have one of these, I just set it on my fabric and it's about 1.5 inches around. You don't want to go too small. It's okay to go a little bit bigger, but not too big because you don't want to have the bulk. But this one worked pretty well. And then I took a 1-inch circle and I put it on cardboard. And I just found some old cardboard from some packaging that I had and just traced a 1-inch circle on it and cut it out. And that way it's not flimsy like paper. It's a little heavier duty. And what you're going to do is you are going to take your circle and you are going to trace around that cardboard circle. That's a 1-inch diameter circle. And you want it pretty close to the center. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you want to try to eyeball so all around the edges it's about the same amount of fabric. And you draw a line like that. So now you have what looks to be like a tire. Then you're going to get a needle and thread. So I have some thread here on a needle, and if you are using thin thread, you'll need 2. You'll just need to double it up and have the knot at the end with it doubled. This thread is a little thicker. I think it's hand quilting thread. And so I'm just going to use a single thread all the way through. And really, I think regular sewing thread would be fine. You just have to be careful not to pull it too hard and break it. And so what you're going to do is you are going to take your piece and you are going, now she says to go ahead and follow around that line or just right on the edge of that line. I like to go a little bit further, and I just take and start taking little pieces and just kind of put a lot of little fabric on my needle, just like this. And you can just do this real quickly. So as you can see, I've got several pieces there, and then I can pull it through. And then I want to leave about 3 inches hanging. Now I did go ahead and do a knot here in case for some reason I accidentally pulled it, it would stop. I don't want to pull it out, but you want to leave about 3 inches of thread hanging. Let's see if we can see that a little bit better. Okay, and you just go all the way around, just, you know, I don't know, quarter to an 1/8 of an inch stitches. If you make them too big, you may have some jagged edges. It would be more likely. The smaller you have it, the smoother your circle edges, I think, would be. And whenever you do that, just make sure you don't grab your thread that you have, the tail of it over here. And you just keep going around. Just load your needle and then pull it through. And you can certainly do 1 stitch at a time if you are new to this and that's more comfortable to you. It's just a running stitch. It's a little tricky watching what you see on the monitor and then sewing at the same time. So I hope it's all coming through for you. And once I get back to where I started, I go past where I started just a little bit, and you can go above it or below it, above or below that stitch line. So at this point, I am right to the starting point. So I'm going to go just a little bit past because I find that it will pull better. Just a couple stitches past it. Okay, so now we have our stitches going all around, and what I can do now is I can cut this thread. And so now I have 2 ends, one at the beginning and one at the end, and I can take my cardboard circle and I can put it right back where those lines that I drew are centered right there, and then I can start pulling. You can pull one side and then the other, or try both of them. You will need to hold one of your threads while you pull the other side, otherwise you will pull it through. And so I just kind of pull, and as you do, just kind of push down that fabric just like that. And then what I do is I make one of our little, like when you're tying your shoe, whatever that knot is called, and then I do a little more pulling. Just not too hard, you don't want to break your thread. And then once you have it all gathered in like this, check and see if it's smooth on the back. And then I take it and I hit it with a little bit of heat. And you can put, and I do it on the back, you can put a little starch on the back too, just to make it hold. So let me do that. And I have just pressed it on the back. And the reason I don't put starch on this side, we've already starched our fabric, and sometimes I find that when I starch it again, it won't absorb, and then you've got a shimmer on top of your fabric where that starch hasn't soaked in. And so I just do the back right now. And then I go ahead and tie another oh, probably a couple of knots just to hold it. Once you have this sewn in, it's not going to come out. And then I trim my threads. And then after it's cooled off, and mine has cooled off, it feels like, we're just gonna pop that cardboard out. Now, if you mess up your cardboard, you'll need to make another for your next berry. But if your cardboard comes out pretty nice, that one's getting a little used, you can reuse it. So I'm just gonna fold that back and it'll go back in place just fine. And now I'm going to give it a press on this side, but I'm not gonna use any starch, just a little steam. And there we have that one. Okay, so let's lay these berries out. And each of these berries goes in those blank square blocks. Oh, isn't that cute? That is just so cute. Oh, okay. So now in order to attach these, you have a couple of options. You can hand stitch them. You can use a blanket stitch. You can use a slip stitch, you know, where you can't even see the stitches, and that would be really pretty on this. You can machine sew it. You can machine sew it with a straight stitch and just go real close to the edge. You can use a blanket stitch on your sewing machine. You can use a zigzag stitch, whichever you like to do. I am thinking that I am going to probably use some red thread, and I think I am going to be machine sewing these down just because of the time. So what I'm going to do is I can put a little glue where they need to go and just kind of give them a press so that they're on, and then just stitch them on, or I can just put pins in them or just lay them in as I go. So I think I'm going to go ahead and use a little Elmer's glue stick. So the Elmer's glue stick, and you can just eyeball. It doesn't have to be perfect. Oops, and that one moved on me. And I'm going to press these down so they will stick with the heat. All right, I will bring you back once they're stitched down. And there we have it, our finished pieced section of that stocking from Tilda's World Patterns. It is a free pattern. The link is in the description box below. Now remember, I just did this panel portion today, and I am going to be turning these into stockings right away. So I'll be doing another video turning this into a stocking, or my Santa, or my Mrs. Claus. And they're going to all be pretty similar in the way we turn them into stockings. So if you want to know how to turn this into a stocking, you can stay tuned. And if you want to just go right ahead and do the stocking, the pattern is right there in the description box below. I give you the link, and you can just download that pattern for free and finish this off on your own. It is a really fun block, and I am looking forward to having a stocking out of it. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, please consider subscribing. I would really appreciate that. That helps my channel out a lot. Also, commenting, sharing, and liking my video. That really helps the algorithms with YouTube, and I appreciate that as well. So I hope you have a great week, and I will see you back here really soon. Bye-bye.